My guest today on the podcast is April Gornik, who has been very active in Sag Harbor on a number of projects, and now including the attempt to secure and save, and I guess open to some extent the home of John Steinbeck, which is tucked away on a shoreline in Sag Harbor, and includes a writing studio. Tell us a little bit about the history of it and when he came here and built it.
Well, Steinbeck was here at the latter part of his life, but he was, I think he owned the house for upwards of about 20 years at least. And he fell in love with Sag Harbor, just like people do today, almost immediately. He was charmed by just the kind of Hampton aspect of it, and the fact that there were so many people who plied the seas and were creatives. And he loved the bars. I mean, he loved everything about Sag Harbor. He really enjoyed it to the hilt and made a lot of friends. He was not like chummy with everybody, nor was he like a glad handing kind of guy. So it's not like he went around and met everybody, but he made fast friends. I mean, to the extent that he was even asked to chair the first Harbor Fest, what has become Harbor Fest, the whaling festival that's held every September. So he had an impact on the village, and the village had a huge impact on him, and more particularly important for the effort to save his house and writing studio as a writer's retreat, which is our intent for it, fingers crossed, is the fact that he wrote his Nobel Prize winning novel, Winter of Our Discontent, here, as well as one of his most popular books, Travels with Charlie. And do you mind if I tell about this in a little more detail? I don't mean to monopolize, but there's
Sure.
One fascinating thing is that when he won the Nobel Prize, he didn't much care about the prize itself, the prize money anyway. And when he got back, he knew a struggling writer and decided to help him out with at least a good portion of his prize winnings. And not only did he help this young male writer out financially, but he also invited him to come and use his home to work with some seclusion on the book that he was trying to finish. So the first use of his home and his writing studio, which he called Joyous Guard, was actually used for this young man. It was a writer's studio for a while, a visiting writer's studio, way back. So it just seems so poignant and important that the home is preserved. And also, I mean, he's one of, I think there's
16
Nobel laureates.
16 American authors won Nobel Prizes.
Thank you. Okay. But it's a small amount, and he's the only one from Sag Harbor. When we were discussing doing this, I just wanted to kind of brush up on my Steinbeck knowledge stores, which were not, fully filled. And one of the things that I ran into is the fact that there are Steinbeck fan clubs all over the world today. There's, like in Singapore and Amsterdam. I mean, it's amazing how huge his reach is.
Yeah.
And he's also such a great humanist, just like a salt of the earth, man of the people kind of person, without being, I mean, I don't think he didn't grandstand about that ever, as far as I know, except in his writing. He didn't get up on any soapboxes out here, but he stood for that. And it's something that he really, it's something that's so applicable today in today's world, like standing up for that kind of.
Tell us where pretty much exactly is the studio and the home.
It's on Bluff Point Lane, which is it's kind of it's sort of off of John Street. You could almost describe it as that, at the southwest part of the village. And the writer's studio is still intact. It hasn't been lived in since Elaine passed away several years ago now. The home is actually owned by a consortium of relatives, and it is their right to try to get as much money for all the participants that are in that consortium. They have the right to get the price that they want for it, but we hope that they will be excited about it being preserved as well, because it being private property, someone else could come in and swoop it up and turn it into a McMansion, and it would be lost forever. And the home is in amazingly good shape. It is intact. It is not in need of repairs. The writing gazebo can still be used. And I think we talked briefly about this before, that Steinbeck designed it and did some work on it himself, at least some work on it. So it's in great condition to become this without any extra added expense.
Well, he would walk across the lawn. It's a waterfront piece of property facing out on the bay. And he would walk across the lawn from the house to this octagonal shaped odd thing that he called it.
Joyous Guard.
Yes, I think it's from Cervantes.
Yes, it's from Don Quixote. Yeah. And it's so he had described the commotion at home with Lane and friends of theirs and kids running in and out, and just really needed some place that he could have privacy. So that's also that perception and sensitivity to how much privacy a writer typically needs also speaks well of our intent for how it should be preserved. And by the way, we started this, I didn't start this at all. I jumped in at Catherine Zoka's request. Catherine Zoka runs Canio's Books here in the village. And she had the idea that when she found out that it was on the market, she had the idea that it should be preserved, and worked very hard on that idea, contacted people from Southampton Town, Community Preservation Fund, did a petition which garnered I think it's 130,000. It's a lot of signatures, an amazing amount of signatures. But she needed a little more structural help to put this together. And just to update you, where we're at is we had asked, originally Stony Brook, of course, was the first place that anyone thinks of out here because they have a great writing program. But they said quite instantly that it was too much for them to deal with at that time. This is barely a year ago. And then she and others were advised that the best thing to do would be to find a university that had significant Steinbeck holdings, and ideally some kind of track record with writers' programs to pair with. And we initially contacted San Jose University, which has very significant Steinbeck holdings, and then UT Austin, University of Texas at Austin, came up. And that turned out to be amazing because there's a really strong connection between you can't make this up, but there's a big, strong connection between UT Austin and Stony Brook. One has a provost originally from Stony Brook, and Stony Brook has writers there, and they've traded a lot of intellectual property and help, and they're great participants with each other. So we're looking forward to putting together a board that will be representing Stony Brook and Pearson High School, if the high school, or Pearson School, if the school system is interested. Definitely John Germain Memorial Library, and a representative from the village board needs to be on it, maybe someone from Southampton Town. So we want to have a very robust representation of people in the community at the table, even if University of Texas at Austin is kind of running the center, but they have the Missioner Center. So they have like pretty much the greatest track record for writers' residencies in the country.
How
So
much money is being asked by the descendants of John Steinbeck?
I think now it's 15.4. It went down from, it was an extreme amount at the beginning. I think it was like 18 million or something like that. Or it was huge amount of money. Maybe it started at 17.6. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact amount. And they've dropped it down, and we've made it a substantial offer. And this is coming from the very generous CPF funding that we've been promised, and also from a number of largely people that reside around that area who don't want to see it turned into a McMansion, who actually love looking at it because it's Steinbeck's, because it's modest, because it's beautiful, it's history in front of their eyes. And it's
How
been
big is the property?
I don't really know. I'd have to run over to a website and look up a sale website to find out. I think it might be a little over an acre. It's not
Not a big piece.
no. It maybe it's 3/4 or something.
How many
It's like
bedrooms? Yeah.
there's just 2 bedrooms, and again, that would not need to change. And the thinking is to have no more than 2 or 3 residents at a time. And the typical amount for a residency like that would be a couple of months. And there would be you wouldn't have like constant tours or anything of that nature. We've talked to the residents at great length, and so did the people from UT that came up to talk to the Southampton town and to the village of Sag Harbor. Like, they've been in contact with everybody, like all the players know each other now. And they met with residents, and their feeling is that the main thing is don't disturb the community, don't make anybody crazy, keep this quiet, but also allow a certain amount of public access. So
Was the Jackson Pollock House, did you ever consider that model where they have a study center there?
absolutely, that's one reason that we contacted Stony Brook first, because they're a part of Stony Brook.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that was our first thought, was like, well, okay, we got Stony Brook and we'll just do this. And then they just said no, for whatever reason. I mean, it was pandemic times. We didn't say why not, but we're glad to still have them at the table, especially now. So whatever seemed burdensome is probably been alleviated because of this collaboration. And then I just wanted to add to that, we met with the mayor and village board of trustees and spoke to them about the intent and public access, because they were concerned that it would be a bunch of people from Texas coming in, and does that mean? And we were like, no, it would be writers from all over, just as if Stony Brook were running it, just like how all residencies are run. And that we have always planned and insisted on, and UT said that they would not be interested unless we had a very practical and effective program for community interaction. So whoever's residents there would be expected to interact with children, other writers, just a certain amount of public interaction. And then also maybe so far we were talking about maybe 5 times a year to have sort of an open house so people could see it. But, just really trying to be careful, because it is a residential neighborhood. It's not, it would be a residence and a residential neighborhood, but we wouldn't want people thinking that it was a free for all.
Well, I think the Jackson Pollock House, it's Pollock Krasner House, is open by appointment, and it's another model, I think, and you can see signs around point saying it's up the street, and you can't go there unless you call, and It's
Well,
sort of
the, the difference is that it's on Springs Fireplace, which is a very public road and not really zoned for residential. And this is really zoned residentially and is not that kind of a busy road. So they have a little advantage in being able to make it more available to a greater amount of people more of the time. But this would not be closed. It would just be, limited.
yes, and it also, I think, becomes, is this is it at a point now where people could contact anyone about donating to help raise the money to make this happen?
Oh,
Is
yes.
that going to be?
Yes, no, we're still looking for a little bit more funding. We're really just trying to narrow that gap from what we think they'll find an acceptable price and what we've already offered, which I can't disclose, but which is substantial. And we're hoping that, we keep saying, who knows Bruce Springsteen, who is a massive, massive Steinbeck fan. It turns out the guy is like completely enamored with Steinbeck, and we just can't quite get to him. But yes, it's absolutely, we're accepting funds through the Sag Harbor Partnership. If you think about the cinema model, this is very similar to the way that we did the cinema. So it would be, we are raising the extra funds besides the community preservation funds, and then making the proposals and working things out with the heirs of the Steinbeck heirs and their consortium. And then once we, get the building and the property in contract, we would be forming a separate, we have the same thing for the cinema. It's called SAG Cinema LLC, run by its own nonprofit. So it would have its autonomy. The one misperception that I've heard is that people think that UT will own it. UT doesn't own it. They would just be the lessee of the property and the house, and they would help run it, but they don't own it.
Will they be putting up any substantial funding for it?
They've actually mentioned yes, they've actually said that within 5 years, they think that they can raise $1 million endowment. I can't say the amount. It's large. It's large. They're an incredibly well-endowed facility. And yes, they're very, very well-endowed. And again, this was the reason to think of a university or a situation like UT Austin that actually has substantial holdings, so that they have a sense of commitment and that it would fit into their makeup. It's in the fiber of their writing efforts and their encouragement of young people and old people. I mean, we've talked about who would be there, and it would be anyone who is an aspiring young humanitarian writer to someone who's older and just trying to finish that last book and just needs some space to work. And certainly we would be getting a lot of suggestions from Stony Brook or whoever.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast, and we've kind of run out of time, and I hope we've all learned about the house and how it would interface, I think, in some major way with the park, and which has also already been put into place. And my guest has been April Gornik, who's one of the spearheading people on the effort to save this property. And thanks for coming and being here for the show.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. It's always great seeing you. And if anybody wants to donate, sagharborpartnership.org is the website. And we'd love to, any amount is great. $10 is wonderful. So anyway, thank you very much.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.